The mask pressed against my face felt like a prison, the feathers scratching at my temples, the glitter suffocating rather than dazzling. Venice pulsed around me, chandeliers dripping light over velvet drapes, music thrumming through marble floors, but I could not feel any of it anymore, not after what I had just seen. Rafe's hand sliding over another woman's waist, his lips devouring hers as though I were invisible. My blood turned cold, then hot, then unbearable. I wanted to scream, but the violin drowned me out, and the laughter of strangers spun around like a cruel carousel. I walked away. No, I fled. My heels clicked sharp on stone as I tore through corridors, into the night, into air that smelled of the lagoon's salt and decay. My throat burned with shame and betrayal, my chest aching as if love itself had been ripped out and tossed into the black waters of the canal. I drank because I could not cry. Each glass numbed me further. Each sip stole the sharpness of memory, until the city blurred into a theater of shadows and lights. The bridges tilted beneath my steps, lanterns floated like fireflies, and my breath came ragged. I did not care where I was going. I wanted to be lost, to punish myself with the kind of recklessness Rafe had just forced into me. When the tall doors of a golden hotel opened, I slipped inside with drunken boldness, daring the night to ruin me further. The hallway was silent, lined with mirrors that reflected a stranger's face back at me, pale, trembling, my eyes wide and wild beneath the mask. A door stood ajar, dark velvet spilling from within. I entered. It smelled of smoke and cedar, rich and unfamiliar. The room felt alive, pulsing, and I swayed toward the bed as if commanded. My gown tangled around my legs, but I let myself collapse against the cool sheets, breathing in the trace of a man who was not there yet, a scent that made my skin prickle. My eyes closed, and darkness curled its fingers around me, pulling me down. I thought I was alone, but the mattress shifted. My lashes fluttered open, and in the dim I saw him, broad shoulders, a face carved in shadows, eyes watching me with a sharpness that sliced through my drunken haze. He was not Rafe. He was no one I knew, and yet my body reacted as if it had been waiting for him all along. "What are you doing in my bed, Bella?" His voice was silk-laced with steel, low and dangerous, sending tremors into my bones. I should have run. I should have screamed. Instead, my lips parted, breathless, my heart slamming against my ribs. I don't know," I whispered, though the truth was burning. I wanted him. He moved closer, the heat of him erasing the cold inside me. His hand brushed the mask from my face, slow, deliberate, his thumb tracing the edge of my cheek as if claiming it. I closed my eyes, surrendering to a touch that felt both foreign and fated. "You're drunk," he murmured, but his mouth hovered near mine, temptation itself. "And you're dangerous," I breathed back, the words trembling between defiance and plea. His laugh was low, cruelly amused, yet there was hunger in it, a hunger that mirrored my own. When his lips finally met mine, I forgot Rafe's betrayal, forgot my name, forgot everything but the fire spreading through me. His kiss tasted of smoke and inevitability, a command disguised as devotion, and I answered it with a desperation that scared me. I should not have wanted him, but I did. Each touch was a question and an answer, each breath stolen a confession. His body pressed mine into the mattress, and for once I felt seen, not as Rafe's possession, not as a discarded lover, but as something precious, claimed by a man whose power radiated like a storm. When I whispered his name, though I did not know it yet, it was not from knowledge, but instinct, as if my soul had always known the taste of him. And when he whispered back, voice rough with possession, "You belong to me now," I believed him, even as part of me wanted to fight. The night blurred into sensation, the city outside forgotten, the betrayal replaced by something darker, sharper, sweeter. My body betrayed me, my heart confused me, my mind spun in the whirlwind of a stranger's arms, and when sleep finally pulled me under, it was not loneliness that held me, but the memory of his gaze, a vow unspoken. Somewhere in me, I knew. I had just made a mistake so vast it could never be undone. And yet, I did not regret it. Not yet.
She was lying in my bed like a secret meant only for me. Her hair spilled across the silk pillow, her dress askew, clinging to curves that whispered of recklessness. Her face was turned slightly toward the window, lips parted, breath shallow. I didn't know her name yet, but I knew her. Knew her in the way you recognize a melody you've never heard before, something that coils into your blood before your mind can explain it. I should have called security, should have had her escorted out without a second glance, but the second glance had already come, and then a third, and by the fourth, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the woman fate had tossed at my feet like a dare. She shifted slightly in her sleep, and the sound she made, soft, involuntary, hit something primal in my jaw tightened. I was not a man given to softness. I broke things, bent people, burned whatever threatened to control me. Yet there she was, fragile and bold all at once, invading my sanctuary without fear. My fingers brushed her cheek before I could stop them. Her skin was warm, too warm, flushed from alcohol or desire or both. And God, she smelled like a storm, wild, intoxicating, dangerous. I leaned in, let her scent fill my lungs. Something inside me snarled possessively. "Who are you, Bella?" I whispered, not expecting an answer. She didn't wake. I stood slowly, exhaling through my nose, controlling the chaos rising under my skin. I didn't like surprises, but this one I intended to keep. By the time I reached my study, my men were already in motion. I gave the order with my usual precision, low and cold. Find out everything. Name, background, who she came with, why she was in my suite, and by dawn, I had it all. Aria Montavani, 23, student, engaged, no, not quite, dating a man who had just left her for an Italian heiress in the same ballroom she flew. I watched the security footage without blinking. I saw her face collapse, saw the glass shake in her, saw the moment she broke, and then I watched her wander, alone, into my world, not by design, not even by desire, by sheer, beautiful accident. My smile curled sharp at the. Some men might have considered her a complication. I considered her a gift. I walked back into the suite as the sun threatened the horizon, painting the canal with blood-orange light. She was still there, curled into herself, like some sleeping sin. I took her purse, quietly, and replaced it with nothing. I left the door locked. 2 men stationed outside. No interruptions. She would wake up soon, and when she did, she would find that she didn't belong to herself any. I didn't believe in destiny, but I believed in power. And there was no greater power than recognizing what should be yours the moment it appears. I poured myself a drink, sat in the chair across from the bed, and watched her breathe. The way her chest rose and fell, the tiny twitch in her fingers, the way her lips moved in some silent dream. I wondered if she was dreaming of. That thought made something ugly rise in me. I crushed it with the ice in my glass. "Aria," I said aloud, letting the name fill the room, test its weight. It felt right in my mouth. "You have no idea what you've walked into. And when you open your eyes, Bella, I won't ask if you want to stay. I'll give you a choice that isn't one. You'll wear my ring. You'll carry my name. You'll become a weapon I use to destroy the man who didn't know what he had. But more than that, you'll become mine. Because something in me has already decided, and I don't let go. Ever."
I woke to silence so absolute, it rang. My lashes stuck together, mascara crusted at the corners, lips dry, tongue heavy. My body was sore in unfamiliar ways. Not pain, but pressure, like I'd been handled, claimed, touched in places I hadn't known were mine to give. The bed beneath me was too smooth, too expensive. The scent in the air, leather, wood smoke, something darker, was not mine, and neither was the room. I sat up slowly, panic unfurling like heat beneath my skin. My head throbbed. My heart was worse. I wasn't in my hotel. My dress was crumpled at the waist, one strap fallen. I pulled it up and scanned the room. Every opulent detail sharper now in daylight. Deep crimson curtains, gold trim on blackened wood, a view of the Grand Canal burning with morning sun, and my purse, gone. My phone, my ID, my wallet, gone. I stumbled to the door, yanked it, locked. 2 men in dark suits stood on the other side. They didn't speak, just stared at me through the glass. No sympathy, no explanation. "What the hell is this?" My voice cracked. "Let me out." Nothing. My fists hit the door. "Let me out." I turned, breath short, chest heaving. That's when I heard it. Slow footsteps, measured, intentional. He entered like a storm in slow motion, dressed in black, eyes colder than logic. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked amused. "You're awake," he said, voice silk sliding over steel. "Good. Who are you?" My throat tightened. "Why am I locked in here?" He raised a brow. "Because I don't trust fate twice. She already delivered you once. I don't even know your name." He stepped closer. I stepped back. "Nico?" he said simply. "Nico Bellavigna." The name hit me like a curse. I'd heard it. Whispers, news, warnings. He wasn't just powerful. He was untouchable. The kind of man other men feared. "I need my things. I need to go." "No." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He walked toward me, slow, like a wolf circling something already wounded. "You left a party in tears? Wandered into my bed, kissed me like your soul was begging to be ruined." And now you want to pretend it meant nothing? I swallowed hard. I was drunk. You weren't unconscious, he replied, voice a blade wrapped in velvet. And you weren't unwilling. My face burned. That doesn't mean you can keep me here. His smile was slow, deadly. Oh, but I can't. I moved toward the window, away from him, air slicing through my lungs like ice. This is insane. He let out a soft laugh behind me. You want insane, Arya? Let's start with this. I froze. He knew my name. He walked around me, holding something in his hand. Photos, screenshots, Rafe, the woman, the kiss, the betrayal replayed in glossy paper. My knees almost gave. You've been cheated on, Nico said gently, mockingly, as if delivering bad news to a child. Publicly, cruelly, thoroughly, by a man who serves under me. What? Oh yes, he murmured. Rafe reports to me. Did you not know? The floor dropped beneath me. You didn't just stumble into the wrong room, Arya. You walked into an opportunity. I shook my head. This isn't real. But it is, he said, voice deepening. I'm giving you a gift. Revenge. You'll marry me. My jaw dropped. You're out of your mind. He stepped so close I felt his breath on my skin. Maybe. But you'll say yes. I stared at him, shaking. Why? Why me? His eyes searched mine. Slow. Calculated. Because you made me feel something. Because the way you looked at me, like you wanted to forget everything else, that look isn't cheap. And I don't let go of things that move me. I laughed, bitter and broken. This is obsession. Maybe, he said softly, lips near my ear. But I'm not asking you to love me. I'm offering you power, a throne, and vengeance. You're offering me a cage. He leaned back just enough to see my face. Only until you stop trying to escape. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, you can't force me. He smiled, dark and devastating. I won't have to. And the worst part? Some part of me already knew he was right. I woke to silence so absolute, it rang. My lashes stuck together, mascara crusted at the corners, lips dry, tongue heavy. My body was sore in unfamiliar ways. Not pain, but pressure, like I'd been handled, claimed, touched in places I hadn't known were mine to give. The bed beneath me was too smooth, too expensive. The scent in the air, leather, wood smoke, something darker, was not mine, and neither was the room. I sat up slowly, panic unfurling like heat beneath my skin. My head throbbed. My heart was worse. I wasn't in my hotel. My dress was crumpled at the waist, one strap fallen. I pulled it up and scanned the room, every opulent detail sharper now in daylight. Deep crimson curtains, gold trim on blackened wood, a view of the Grand Canal burning with morning sun, and my purse, gone. My phone, my ID, my wallet, gone. I stumbled to the door, yanked it, locked. Two men in dark suits stood on the other side. They didn't speak, just stared at me through the glass. No sympathy, no explanation. What the hell is this? My voice cracked. Let me out. Nothing. My fists hit the door. Let me out! I turned, breath short, chest heaving. That's when I heard it. Slow footsteps, measured, intentional. He entered like a storm in slow motion, dressed in black, eyes colder than logic. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked amused. You're awake, he said, voice silk sliding over steel. Good. Who are you? My throat tightened. Why am I locked in here? He raised a brow. Because I don't trust fate twice. She already delivered you once. I don't even know your name. He stepped closer. I stepped back. Nico, he said simply. Nico Bellavigna. The name hit me like a curse. I'd heard it. Whispers, news, warnings. He wasn't just powerful. He was untouchable. The kind of man other men feared. I need my things. I need to go. No. I blinked. Excuse me? He walked toward me, slow, like a wolf circling something already wounded. You left a party in tears, wandered into my bed, kissed me like your soul was begging to be ruined, and now you want to pretend it meant nothing? I swallowed hard. I was drunk. You weren't unconscious, he replied, voice a blade wrapped in velvet. And you weren't unwilling. My face burned. That doesn't mean you can keep me here. His smile was slow, deadly. Oh, but I can. I moved toward the window, away from him, air slicing through my lungs like ice. This is insane. He let out a soft laugh behind me. You want insane, Arya? Let's start with this. I froze. He knew my name. He walked around me, holding something in his hand. Photos, screenshots, Rafe, the woman, the kiss, the betrayal replayed in glossy paper. My knees almost gave. You've been cheated on, Nico said gently, mockingly, as if delivering bad news to a child. Publicly, cruelly, thoroughly, by a man who serves under me. What? Oh yes, he murmured. Rafe reports to me. Did you not know? The floor dropped beneath me. You didn't just stumble into the wrong room, Arya. You walked into an opportunity. I shook my head. This isn't real, but it is, he said, voice deepening. I'm giving you a gift. Revenge. You'll marry me. My jaw dropped. You're out of your mind. He stepped so close I felt his breath on my skin. Maybe, but you'll say yes. I stared at him, shaking. Why? Why me? His eyes searched mine, slow, calculated. Because you made me feel something. Because the way you looked at me, like you wanted to forget everything else, that look isn't cheap. And I don't let go of things that move me. I laughed, bitter and broken. This is obsession. Maybe, he said softly, lips near my ear. But I'm not asking you to love me. I'm offering you power, a throne, and vengeance. You're offering me a cage. He leaned back just enough to see my face, only until you stopped trying to escape. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, You can't force me. He smiled, dark and devastating. I won't have to. And the worst part? Some part of me already knew he was right.
She stood in front of me, trembling with rage and something she wouldn't name, something that lived in the dark behind her eyes. Fear, maybe, curiosity, or desire so stubborn it dressed itself in defiance. I watched her jaw tighten, that perfect mouth trembling as she whispered her resistance like it held power. It didn't, not here, not with me. I could have softened, offered her lies wrapped in silk, promises dressed as freedom, but I wanted her to know exactly what she was choosing. I wanted her to feel the weight of it, of me. You have until sunset, I said, voice low and lethal, pacing toward her with deliberate stillness. To say yes. To what? She snapped. I smiled slowly. To being mine. Her laugh cracked, brittle. That's not a proposal. That's a threat. I stopped inches from her. It's both. Her breath hitched, and she hated that I noticed. I watched the war rage behind her eyes, her body saying yes long before her mouth caught up. She tried to look past me, as if the opulence of the room would save her. You think I want revenge that badly? No, I said gently. I think you want to matter. I think you're tired of begging to be seen by boys like, and I think, deep down, you already know you don't want to. She didn't speak. Her silence was louder than any scream. I stepped behind her, not touching, yet so close she could feel the heat of me. I let my words fall like breath against her neck. I'll give you power, Arya, respect. A seat beside a man they all fear. You'll walk into every room and own it. And he, Rafe, he will burn every time he sees you. He'll know exactly what he lost and who took you from him. She turned to face me, lips parted, eyes wild with disbelief. And what do you get? My gaze dropped to her mouth. Everything. She should have run. Instead, she whispered, What happens if I say yes? My smile sharpened. Then the cage becomes a crown. I held out a box. Black velvet. No romance. No illusion. Inside, a ring. Platinum. Thick. Old. A relic of my family. A mark of belonging. She stared at it like it might bite her. This isn't love. No, I said. This is ownership. She didn't flinch. Not this time. And when she took it, slowly, sliding it onto her own finger, I felt something inside me twist into place. It wasn't ceremony. It wasn't vows. It was something older, darker. Her defiance accepted my domination. And in that quiet, furious silence, we were. Later, I led her down into the heart of the house, where walls listened and ghosts stayed quiet. My men stood when they saw her, eyes lowered. They didn't need introduction. They understood. She was untouchable. We passed the chapel, unused for years, its candles flickering as if they knew what we'd just done. And still, she said nothing. Her silence was the most exquisite kind of surrender. I guided her into a room built on blood and secrets. At the center, a long table. On it, a contract. She blinked at it, reading the terms. Marriage in name, alliance in public, silence in private, my protection, her obedience. And at the end, one signature line beneath her name. She picked up the pen with shaking fingers. You really think this will make him pay? I leaned in. I don't care if he pays. I care that you stay. She signed, and in that second, she belonged to me. Not because of the paper, not even the ring, but because she chose the devil she didn't know over the coward who betrayed her. I reached for her chin, lifting it so she had no choice but to meet my eye. You're mine now, I said softly, not just in name, not just in ink, but in every way that matters. And when she whispered, What if I change my mind? I leaned down, brushing my mouth near hers. Then I'll change it back. There was no kiss, just breath. Because desire withheld is sharper than pleasure given, and I wanted her begging, soon.
The ring was heavier than I expected. It didn't sparkle. It didn't catch light like a promise. It sat cold and solid on my finger like a shackle made of silence. I stared at it in the mirror, the metal dull against my skin, and tried to remember who I was before last night. Before his voice, before his hands, before the way he looked at me like I was a puzzle he already knew how to solve. I wasn't sure I existed outside of this place anymore. The mansion was a labyrinth, marble floors that echoed like accusation, high windows that filtered light like confession. Every hallway whispered secrets. Every door led somewhere I wasn't allowed to go. I wandered anyway. The guards didn't stop me, but they watched me like I was a storm waiting to happen. Maybe I was. I passed a grand staircase, its banister cold beneath my fingers, and made my way into a room I hadn't seen before. Velvet drapes, darker than wine. A piano in the corner, untouched. Books lined the walls like memories no one dared open. He found me there. I didn't hear him enter, but I felt it. The shift in the air, the tightening of every breath inside me. "You're adapting quickly," Nico said behind me, his voice low, unreadable. I didn't turn. "I'm surviving. That's not the same." "No," I whispered. "It isn't." He moved closer, slowly, until his presence pressed against my back like heat. I could smell him. Something rich and clean and masculine, like the aftermath of danger. "You haven't asked for your phone," he murmured near my ear. "Would you give it back if I did?" "No." "Then why ask?" "Because I like to see how long it takes you to stop pretending this is temporary." I turned to face him then, my heart hammering, anger thick in my chest. "You think I'll just forget everything? That I'll become what you want because you're giving me rooms and guards and your name?" He studied me, head tilted slightly. "No, I think you'll become what you were always meant to be." "And what's that?" His hand rose slowly, fingertips brushing the line of my jaw. "Powerful, dangerous, mine." I wanted to slap him. I wanted to kiss him. I did neither. "I'm not yours," he smiled. "You signed, Arya. That wasn't consent. That was survival." He leaned in, so close I felt his breath ghost over my lips. Survival is the first step to surrender. I hated how my body responded, how my skin lit up beneath his voice like it belonged to him already. I hated that somewhere in me, something wanted to believe him. "I should hate you," I whispered. His eyes burned into mine. "Then do." I took a step back, needing space, needing air. "You're insane." "No," he said softly. "I'm inevitable." I fled the room, heart pounding, but even with distance between us, I still felt him, like smoke clinging to my lungs. By the time I reached my own chamber, I could barely breathe. I closed the door behind me and slid down against it, the ring catching the light now, taunting me with every movement. I didn't cry. I refused to. But my reflection in the vanity told another story. And when I touched the cold metal at my finger again, I realized something terrifying. I hadn't taken it off. Not once, not even when I was alone.
They brought him to me at dusk. 2 of my men held him between them like spoiled meat, his suit rumpled, his lip bleeding, eyes wide with disbelief that refused to settle into fear. Not yet, but it would. Fear always comes last, when pride has nothing left to cling to. He looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I had grown larger in his absence. Maybe obsession had changed the shape of me. I didn't move from my chair. I let him look at me, seated like a king in a room too cold for forgiveness. "Nico," he rasped, defiant still, as if that name once meant safety. I tilted my head. "Rafe, what is this?" I smiled, slow and cruel. "This," I said, rising at last, "is clarity." He didn't understand. Not truly. Not until I pulled the photo from my pocket. Her image, that mask. Her bare shoulder caught in candle, her lips parted in sleep. My bed, my ring. I watched the blood drain from his face. Yes," I said softly. "She's mine now." His voice cracked. "She doesn't belong to you." "She does," I whispered, stepping close enough for him to smell the truth of it all. "She chose to forget you. She let me rewrite everything you ruined." His mouth trembled. "You don't love her." My laugh was low, dangerous. "Love is a leash. I offer something much deeper." He lunged, foolish and blind, and my men pulled him down with fists and silence. I didn't stop them. He deserved pain, because he had touched her, lied to her, left her crying in the dark while he wrapped himself in another. He hadn't just betrayed her, he had broken her, and I would make sure he never forgot it. Blood smeared across the marble as I crouched beside him. He groaned, and I touched his cheek like a lover would, gently, almost reverently. "You had her heart," I said, voice almost tender, "and you let it rot in your hands." "She still loves me," he choked. I gripped his jaw. "No, she remembers you like a sickness, and I am the cure." I let him fall, and then I turned, walking to the mirrored wall, watching my reflection with her ring gleaming on my hand. She hadn't taken it off, even when she looked at me with fire, even when she tried to pretend she hated every second. She wore it because some part of her already knew. There would be no one. I'd given her a new name, a new story, a new empire, and Rafe, he was just the ghost I would bury beneath. I left him in the dark, chained, forgotten, silenced, and as I stepped into the hall, the hush of my footsteps against stone echoing like final breaths, I allowed myself a smile, because pain was a language I spoke fluently, but jealousy made me cruel, and Arya had cried for him. I hadn't forgotten. I wouldn't.
The walls whispered, not with voices, but with something heavier, an absence that had shape and weight and breath. Something had shifted. I felt it in the silence of the corridors, in the way the air refused to move, as though holding its own breath. I hadn't seen Nico all day, not since that last look. Quiet, unreadable, dangerous. He'd said nothing, just let his gaze settle on me like a blade resting flat against my throat. It was a promise. I just hadn't known what kind. Until now. They didn't tell me where I was going. 2 guards appeared, not speaking, not touching, just waiting. I followed, because I was too tired to fight shadows and too curious to stay afraid. The steps led downward, into the belly of the estate. The air cooled, thickened. The light dimmed to a pulse. When the door opened, I saw him, Rafe, broken. He was chained, bloodied, slumped in a corner like an afterthought. His eyes lifted slowly, one already swollen shut, the other wet with disbelief. Arya. My knees buckled, rage and nausea colliding like fire in my stomach. "What did he do to you?" I whispered, my voice strangled by the weight of what I saw. Rafe coughed, and blood stained his teeth. "You have to get out. He's not. Stop!" I stepped forward, but a hand caught my arm. Nico. His presence darkened the room instantly. "You brought me here?" I spat. "To show me what? That you're a monster?" He didn't flinch. "To show you the cost of betrayal. He betrayed me, not you. He touched what's mine." I shoved at his chest, useless against the wall of him. "You don't own me." His smile was slow, cruel. "No? Then take off the ring." My hand froze. He leaned in. "You won't. Because part of you likes this. You want him to suffer. You just don't want the blood on your hands." I wanted him to feel what I felt, I hissed. "Not this, but this," he murmured, voice a velvet knife, "is what it takes." I turned back to Rafe, who was watching me with something worse than pain, pity. "You chose him," he said. "No," I whispered. "I chose me." And maybe that was the real betrayal. Because I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg Nico to stop. I just stood there. And somewhere in the twisted wreckage of everything I used to be, I felt something else rise. Power. And it terrified me.
She didn't scream. She didn't cry. That was the worst part. I had expected fury, yes. Rage like wildfire. Accusations hurled with trembling hands. Maybe even a slap that would sting for hours. But Arya stood in front of his broken body and didn't. Her voice shook, but her eyes didn't. She didn't look at me like a monster. She looked at me like a mirror, and that cut deeper than her silence. I watched her leave the cellar without another. No plea for mercy, no just that unbearable stillness, that haunted elegance that made my blood burn and my soul ache with a craving I didn't know how to name. I stayed, alone with what remained of the man who once called her. Rafe didn't speak again. Not that I gave him the chance. I'd already taken the only thing he ever held over her, his past with her, and now, even that was ash. When I returned to my study, the door was already open. She was there, in my chair, her legs crossed, her hands folded, regal, composed, dangerous in a way that thrilled me. She didn't rise when I entered. "You made your point," she said. Her voice wasn't cold, it was worse. It was calm. "I didn't do it for you," I replied. "I know," she said. "That's the problem." I circled the desk slowly, the silence between us tightening like a noose. "You could have stopped it," she whispered, "but you didn't. And now you've shown me exactly who you are." I leaned against the edge of the desk, watching her. "You think I care how you see me?" "No," she said, lifting her eyes to mine. "But I think you care that I see you at all." My breath stalled, because she was right. Somewhere between the night she stumbled into my bed and the moment she put on my ring, she became the one pair of eyes in the world I couldn't bear to lose. And now she looked at me like I was no longer inevitable. She rose slowly, walked to me, stopped too close. I could feel the frost beneath her skin, taste the fire buried beneath. "I won't run," she said. "Not yet. But don't mistake my silence for surrender." I swallowed the urge to grab her, to pin her to that desk and kiss the defiance out of her. Instead, I whispered, "And if I never want you silent, then you should have chosen someone easier to break." She left me in the quiet, with my own pulse screaming and the ghost of her scent clinging to my throat. And for the first time since I carved my place into this empire, I felt something foreign clawing at my chest. Fear, because if she walked away, I wasn't sure I'd let her go. But I was even less sure I'd survive if I did.
Power tastes different when you've earned it through blood instead of beauty. I hadn't asked for this crown, but I could feel its weight settling around my shoulders, heavy and cold and terribly intoxicating. I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror anymore, the one with eyes that didn't tremble, with lips that no longer parted in apology. She looked like she could survive anything, maybe even him. Nico hadn't come to me since that night. He watched from the edges, just far enough to make me doubt the pull between us, just close enough that I felt it anyway. The air thickened when he entered a room, a silent dare floating between us, but he didn't touch me. Not once. Not with his hands, only with his gaze, and I could feel it now, from the hallway, pressing into the walls of my bedroom like heat. I didn't turn when he walked in. I let him feel the echo of my silence. "You're wearing white," he said, voice low, amused. "It's not for you." He came closer, each step measured, meant to be heard. "Then who is it for?" "For me," I said, finally turning. "I want to remember who I was before your name lived in my mouth." His eyes darkened. "And who was she?" "Naive, soft, breakable." I stepped toward him, slowly. "She died when you made me watch him bleed." He flinched. Barely. But I saw it. Good. I circled him now, like he had once circled me, letting my words cut slow and deep. "You think you turned me into something you control, but you didn't. You just burned away everything that made me easy to love." "Wrong," he murmured. "I see every part of you, even the ones you hide." I stopped behind him, close enough that my breath brushed the collar of his shirt. "Then tell me what I want, Nico." He didn't move. "You want to hate me, and you can't." I stepped around him, tilted my head. "And you?" He exhaled like my question wounded him. "I want you to break me or belong to me. There's no in-between." I lifted my hand to his chest, felt the thrum beneath his ribs, and leaned in until our mouths hovered, close enough to taste each other's restraint. "But what if I want both?" I whispered. He closed his eyes like it hurt. "Then I'm already yours." I didn't kiss him. I left him there. And this time he didn't follow. But I felt his breath on my neck long after I was alone.
She didn't kiss me. She didn't have to. The way she looked at me, head tilted, mouth almost touching mine, breath like silk-wrapped fire, was worse than a kiss. It was a test. One I failed the moment she walked away. I stood in the same spot long after she disappeared, her scent still etched into the air, her words echoing like bullets ricocheting off stone. She wanted both, my destruction and my devotion. And I, fool that I am, was ready to offer her both without hesitation. I'd told myself this was strategy, that keeping her close was leverage, that marking her, wedding her, controlling her was necessary. But I knew now. I wasn't reigning over her. I was orbiting her, captive to gravity I never consented to. When I touched my chest where her hand had rested, it burned, not from heat, from ache. I'd had women, countless. They came to me for danger, for money, for proximity to the monster they thought they could tame. But Arya, she didn't want to tame me. She wanted to witness me, and somehow that was worse. She'd seen too much already. I poured a drink, dark and sharp, and stared out the window into the night that had begun to turn cold. Below, the water whispered secrets to the stones. I wondered what it would tell her it could speak, that I was a tyrant, that I knew how to command a room with silence, that I didn't sleep without a gun with it, but not that I was unraveling. That was just for her. I turned as the door opened without a knock. One of my men entered, pale, breath shallow. "She's sent for her things." I blinked once. "What things?" "Clothes, jewelry, books. She says she's staying, but she wants her past back." The glass in my hand cracked. I didn't let go. So this is what it feels like to lose control slowly. I dismissed him with a nod and stared at the broken edge of crystal slicing into my palm. Blood welled, bright and alive. She was winning. Not because she'd taken anything, but because I'd given everything, and called it power. I walked down the corridor, not knowing where I was going until I reached her door. I didn't knock. I didn't speak. I just stood there, listening to the sound of her breathing on the other side, soft and steady, like the storm had settled inside her instead of around her. I closed my eyes, and I whispered, not loud enough for her to tell me how to be enough for you, but I already knew she would. She'd make me find it, bleed for it, burn for it, and if she ever chose to leave, God help anyone who tried to keep me from following.
There was an ache in me that sleep couldn't touch. It lived beneath my ribs, coiled like a secret, tightening every time I heard his footsteps in the hall, every time I remembered the look in his eyes. Not power, not pride, but something rawer, something close to desperation. I didn't know what to do with that, so I wandered. The house, for all its grandeur, had corners untouched by him, and in one of them, I found her, Nonna. She was seated in the garden's winter light, wrapped in a shawl the color of old blood, knitting something delicate with hands that looked like they could break you if they had to. Her eyes lifted when she saw me, not surprised, not unkind, just knowing. "I was wondering when you'd come," she said. I hesitated. "You know who I am?" "Of course." She smiled, a slow thing that didn't reach her eyes. "You're the girl who made him bleed without using a knife." I sat across from her without asking, drawn by something I didn't understand. "I didn't mean to change him," I said quietly. "You didn't," she replied. "You revealed him. That's worse." The wind stirred between us, soft and cold, full of questions neither of us wanted to ask out loud. "Was he always like this?" I whispered. "No." She looked at the sky like it might offer the words she couldn't say. "He was a boy once. Gentle. Quiet. Thought the world could be healed if you loved it hard enough." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "What happened?" She met my gaze. It didn't love him back. We sat in silence after that, the kind that fills rather than empties. I realized she wasn't trying to make excuses for him. She wasn't romanticizing the monster he'd become. She was mourning the boy he used to be, and I hated that I mourned him too. Later, when I returned to my room, I found a single rose on my pillow, deep red, thorned, no note, no explanation, just him, always him. I stared at it for too long, until dusk painted the walls in gold and grief, and finally I picked it up, held it to my chest, and let myself feel everything I had been trying to bury. Hurt, anger, lust, longing. I didn't understand him, but I was starting to understand myself, and that was so much more dangerous.
I felt her softening. That was the most dangerous part. Not her fury, not her silence, but the quiet shift beneath it, like ice starting to crack beneath the sun. It made my blood thrum, not with triumph, with warning. Because when a woman like Arya begins to bend, it's not surrender, it's the coiling of something greater, and I wanted to believe I was the only one who saw it, but then she appeared, Luciana. She stepped into my office like she still owned the room, like her name hadn't been scraped from every surface I touched. Black dress, red mouth, eyes sharpened by spite. She smiled like she knew something I didn't, and that made my fists curl before she even opened her mouth. "You replaced me with her?" she asked, circling the desk like a vulture. "She's nothing like me." "Exactly," I said flatly. She tilted her head, amused. "She's soft, breakable. She'll crack the moment this world turns on her." "She already survived you," I murmured. Luciana's smile faltered. "Good. She won't last," she said. "And when she runs, it won't be from you. It'll be to someone else." I didn't blink. "She won't run. She's already halfway gone," she whispered, leaning in, poison dripping from every syllable. "She goes to your grandmother, to the staff, to your men. She's looking for allies, Nico. She's playing the long game." I stood slowly. Luciana didn't flinch. "I let you live," I said quietly. "Don't mistake that for mercy. You think she loves you?" She laughed. "You're just the next chapter in her sad little rebellion, a crown to wear until she finds a cleaner kingdom." I didn't answer. I didn't move, but something inside me cracked, because I hated how much I wanted her to be wrong. Luciana walked toward the door, pausing only once. "Be careful. Sometimes the ones you chain are the ones who hold the key." She left me in a silence so sharp I could barely breathe. I turned to the window, and there she was. Arya, in the garden again, her hair caught in the wind, her body wrapped in something soft and white. She looked like peace. She looked like danger. And for the first time, I didn't know which one I wanted her to be.
I saw her before she spoke. She moved like perfume, slow, deliberate, meant to linger in places no one wanted her. Luciana Belladonna. I'd heard her name in murmurs and silences, read it between Nico's clenched teeth and Nona's narrowed eyes, but none of it prepared me for the way she smiled at me, like she already knew how the story would end. I didn't flinch. She found me in the west corridor, where the sunlight stretched in tired ribbons across marble floors and old portraits watched like gods. "You must be Arya," she purred, her voice silk-soaked in venom. "The one who made him forget." I tilted my head. "And you must be the one he erased." Her smile sharpened. "He doesn't erase me. He pauses me." I stepped closer, letting the quiet between us stretch like wire. "Then consider yourself paused indefinitely." She laughed, low and bitter. "He thinks you're different. He thinks you'll stay." I didn't answer, because I didn't know yet. Luciana studied me with the hunger of someone who only felt powerful when others bled. "You look at him like you want to save him," she said. "But men like Nico don't get saved. They survive, and they swallow whatever tries to fix them." I breathed in slowly. "Then maybe I don't want to fix him." She blinked. "Maybe," I whispered, I just want to burn beside him. That silenced her, but only for a second. You think he won't destroy you? She asked. I think I'm already destroyed. Luciana stepped back, as if I'd slapped her with something colder than rage. Then she smiled, too wide. Enjoy the fire while it lasts. When he turns on you, don't say I didn't warn you. I didn't move until she was gone. And even then, I stayed in that sunlit hallway, letting her words sink in and settle where my doubt already lived. But when I returned to my room, the ring was still on my finger. And I hadn't thought of taking it off. Not once. Because this wasn't a game. Not for me. He wasn't a piece. He was the war. And I wasn't done fighting. Not yet.
The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the usual kind, not the kind I command, but the kind that feels wrong. Too still, too clean. Like the air itself was pretending not to know what had just happened. He was gone. Rafe, the chains, the cell, the guards, they all failed. Or someone made them. Either way, it didn't matter. Because the second I heard the words, he's out, I only thought of her. I moved faster than reason. Through the corridors, past rooms that now felt too open, too vulnerable. I could already feel it in my blood. The wrongness, the dread clawing at the edge of logic. She wasn't in her room. Her shawl was draped across the chair, still warm. A half-empty cup of tea. A book left open. Spine cracked. She hadn't planned to leave. She'd been taken. Or worse. She'd gone to him. My vision blurred for a second. Not from rage. From fear. The word itself tasted foreign in my mouth. I wasn't afraid of death or betrayal or war, but the idea of losing her, of watching someone else touch what I had claimed, of seeing her choose anyone but me. No, that was the kind of fear that rewrote you. I found them in the North Wing. Voices. A crash. Her scream. The kind of sound that slices through bone. I kicked the door open. He had her by the wrist. Her back was against the wall. There was blood on her lip. I didn't speak. I shot him. Once. Twice. He fell. She did too. And I was beside her before the smoke cleared. Her eyes were wide, unfocused, breath shaking, skin clammy beneath my hands. Arya, I said, voice low, raw, desperate. Look at me. She blinked, but didn't speak. I lifted her, carried her to the bed, checked every inch of her like prayer, searching for damage, for wounds, for anything I could fix with blood or fire or ruin. She touched my hand. I'm fine, she whispered. You're not, I rasped. He touched you. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't. I pressed my forehead to her, eyes shut. I should have killed him sooner, I said. Her voice broke around the edges. You did this. You let him live. I pulled back, breath jagged. Because you asked me to. She looked at me, eyes filled with something worse than anger, disappointment. And I realized then, what I felt wasn't love. It was terror. Because love could be survived. But losing her? That would ruin me.
His hands were trembling. Nico Bellavigna, the man who burned cities with a single glance, was shaking. Not from rage, from something worse, something softer, something he didn't know how to carry. I felt it in the way his fingers brushed my cheek like I might disappear, in the way his forehead pressed against mine like a confession. I should have pushed him away, should have spat venom or screamed the truth of what he'd done, how he'd let this happen, how he'd fed the fire that nearly consumed me. But I didn't. Because under the blood and smoke and ruin, I saw it. Guilt. And something so much closer to love than either of us had ever dared name. I should have hated him. I didn't. I hated that I didn't. The ache in my ribs wasn't just from the blow. It was from something cracking open, something I had buried so deep I thought it had drowned. He lifted his head, eyes searching mine like he was looking for absolution. I would have let the world burn for you, he whispered. But I tried to be what you needed. I tried to be good enough. I touched the edge of his jaw, still rough with stubble, still smelling like danger and devotion and something uniquely him. I never asked you to be good, I said, voice fragile but steady. I just needed you to see me, not as a possession, not as proof, but as a person. He swallowed hard, his throat working around words he couldn't seem to find. I pressed my palm to his chest. His heart was racing, thundering beneath my hand like a truth he couldn't hide. I saw you, he said finally, before you ever saw yourself. And maybe that was the most terrifying part, because as much as I wanted to believe I'd chosen this, chosen him, I knew, deep down, he'd seen the girl inside me long before I ever realized she was worth anything. He pulled me into him, not like a man taking, but like a man begging not to break, and I let him. For the first time, I let myself be held by the man who could destroy me, and all I could think was, God help me. I wanted to stay.
She melted against me like she belonged there. No fight. No venom. Just breath and softness and surrender so quiet it stole the rhythm of mine. My arms wrapped around her out of instinct, but what held her wasn't muscle or violence. It was the kind of ache that begged not to be. I could have kissed her. God, I wanted to. My mouth hovered at her temple, at the edge of her pulse, where I could feel the echo of her life beat against my. I could have pulled her closer, buried myself in her, lost my name inside the sound of her saying it, but I didn't, because this time, I needed her to know I could hold back, that I could choose restraint when everything inside me was already on its knees. She didn't understand what it cost me, how every inch of her skin against mine called to the part of me that only knew how to take, but I didn't take. I just held her, and I prayed, to no one, to nothing, that she would feel it, that she would feel the shift. Because power is easy, possession, second nature, but tenderness, that was foreign, dangerous. It cracked the armor, it rewrote the rules, and I was so damn tired of. She shifted slightly, her hand curling against my chest, her breath slowing like waves retreating from the shore. Why aren't you touching me? Her voice barely a breath. I am, I murmured. Just not the way I used to. She pulled back, eyes searching, unsettled. Did I break you? I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat like truth. No, I whispered. You made me want to stay whole. Her mouth parted, and I stepped away. Because if I stayed, I would have undone every inch of that fragile self-control. If I stayed, I would have taken her back to bed and made her forget every line we were trying not to cross again. So I walked out. Let the distance speak what I couldn't. Let silence hold her no longer. And I closed the door behind me like a man walking away from a fire, knowing it would burn anyway.
The bed was still warm when I opened my eyes, but he was gone. No whisper of movement, no fading echo of his breath against my skin. Just silence, cold, sharp, bitter. The kind that slips beneath your ribs and blooms where trust was starting to take root. I sat up slowly, the weight of the night pressing down on my spine. The sheets smelled like him, darkness and something softer, something I'd never had the courage to name. And yet now, with the echo of his arms around me still clinging to my body, I felt empty, abandoned, used. The word made me flinch. I told myself I was stronger than that I hadn't given him anything he hadn't already taken. But the way he'd held me, still, trembling, deliberate, it had felt like a promise. And now he was gone, like all of it had meant nothing. I wrapped the sheet around me, not because I was cold, but because I needed something to hold on to. My legs moved before I decided to follow. Instinct pulled me down the hallway like a current, through shadows and gold light, and the scent of flowers that shouldn't have been blooming in winter. Then I heard it, a sound too soft to belong to this place. A coo, a tiny cry. I followed it, heart in my throat, and found them, on the terrace. Nico sat in a low chair, back to me, the baby cradled against his chest like something sacred. His head was bent, lips brushing the child's forehead in a motion so gentle it shattered me. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. He felt me the way I felt him, always, everywhere, like gravity. His voice came low, quiet. He woke. I didn't want him to cry alone. I stepped closer, barely breathing. You left. He looked up, eyes like dusk. Because if I stayed, I wouldn't have stopped. I swallowed. I thought I was just another weapon to you. He looked down at the child, then back at me. No. You were the war. Silence held us like a breath between heartbeats. Then he rose, the baby still tucked against his shoulder, and walked toward me. He paused inches away. Do you still think I used you? I couldn't answer, so he placed our son in my arms, and he said, I only left so you wouldn't have to wake up regretting me. I held the child close, and I broke. Not from pain, from the truth.
She looked at me like I was breaking open in front of her, not crumbling, splitting, revealing, and maybe I was. Maybe that was the only way left to love her, not with force, not with walls, but with surrender. I watched her hold our son against her chest, his tiny fingers clutching the fabric of her nightdress, like he already knew she was the safest place in the world. And I envied him. That certainty, that belonging, that pure, unquestioned right to be loved. I took a breath. It felt like swallowing glass. I never knew how to ask for forgiveness, I said, not knowing where the words were coming from. So I've built a life that never required it. Her gaze didn't soften. It sharpened. And still, she said nothing. So I stepped closer. I hurt you. Still silent. I scared you. Her lashes fluttered, but her eyes stayed locked on. I would undo it all if I whispered. But I can't. All I can do is give you the truth. I paused. Let the moment stretch until it nearly broke. I love you. She inhaled like the word hit her ribs, like she didn't expect it to feel like. I love you in ways I don't know how to explain, I continued. Not because you're mine, but because I'm yours. I have been since the second you looked at me like I wasn't a monster. even when I deserved to be. She blinked slowly, one hand moving to soothe the child as if to steady herself. I took another step, close now, close enough to feel the tremble in her, or maybe in me. If you want to go, Arya, my voice cracked. I won't stop you. Something dark flickered in her expression, something like fury, or grief, or grace. She looked down at the baby, then back at me. I don't want to go, she said softly. I wanted to be worth staying for. I swallowed a sound that might have been a sob. You were, I breathed. You are. You always will be. She stepped forward and placed our son in my arms, and then she kissed me, not like fire, like mercy. And I knew, no empire I'd ever built, no blood I'd ever spilled, would mean more than this moment, because I hadn't just won her back, I'd been forgiven.
The house was quiet again, not empty, but held in stillness, the kind that only comes after a storm has passed and the ground is still too tender to be touched. I sat by the window, watching the pale outline of dawn stretch across the canal, the water smooth as glass, like even the city itself had stopped to breathe with me. The baby slept in the bassinet beside me, his little chest rising with rhythm I couldn't match. I had never known peace could be so fragile, so temporary, so fiercely earned. I picked up the pen. The paper in front of me trembled slightly as my hand hovered, not from fear, but from the weight of what I was about to write. My son, you don't know it yet, but you saved me. Not with your cries or your laughter or your fingers wrapped around mine, but with the way you came into this world, loud, demanding, unapologetically alive. You made me choose, not between right and wrong, not between escape and captivity, but between fear and love, between the woman I was and the one I became to survive him. Your father is not a good man, but he is my man, and he became yours the moment he held you like you were more sacred than his sins. You'll grow up hearing stories about him. Most of them will be true. Some will be worse. Some will be softer than they should be. But this is the truth you'll never find in the mouths of others. He loves with teeth. He protects like war. He destroys anything that threatens what's his, and he has called me his from the first breath I stole in his bed. I should have run, but love doesn't always look like freedom. Sometimes it looks like choosing to stay, even when every part of you remembers what it felt like to be caged, because staying isn't weakness. It's knowing you could leave and deciding not to, for yourself, for the man who tried to become worthy of your forgiveness, for the child who will one day understand that even monsters bleed when they love hard enough. I put the pen down, looked at you, then looked toward the door. I knew he was there. He hadn't knocked, he never did, but I felt him, just as I always had. And this time, I smiled, because he wasn't a prison anymore. He was the proof that I'd survived one.
She slept like she was finally safe, one arm curled around the edge of the pillow, the other resting near the bassinet as if even in her dreams, she was still tethered to the life we created. I stood in the doorway, unmoving, watching the rise and fall of her breath as though it held the rhythm of the— Maybe it did. Mine, at least. I'd learned to command men with silence, to win wars without drawing a blade, to dismantle empires with a glance and rebuild them beneath my heel. But this quiet room filled with the hum of new breath and the scent of her skin lingering in the air, this was the only thing I had never been able to master. And God, I didn't want to. I stepped closer, bare feet on marble, the kind of vulnerability I'd once thought would kill me. But with her, I wanted to be not respected, not feared, just seen, just hers. I sat at the edge of the bed and reached for her, the one still warm from writing something I hadn't read yet. I didn't need to. I felt it in the way she smiled in her sleep, barely there, like whatever peace she'd found had decided to stay for once. I brought her fingers to my lips, kissed the inside of her wrist, slow and reverent. You survived me, I whispered, voice breaking open like the sky before a storm, and I will spend the rest of my life proving I was worth surviving. The baby stirred but didn't cry. A sound, soft and content, filled the space between us. I rose and walked to the bassinet, leaned down, and brushed my knuckles over the soft curve of his cheek. My heir, my legacy. But when I looked back at Arya, still dreaming, still mine, I knew the truth. He wasn't my legacy. She was. She, who walked through hell barefoot and bleeding, and still had the strength to love the man who built the fire. I returned to her side, laid down beside her without waking her, and slid my arm beneath her waist. She shifted toward me instantly, like some ancient memory still lived in her body, one that whispered I was home. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I slept. Not like a man guarding a throne, but like one who had finally found something worth kneeling for.
The garden was quieter now. The roses had bloomed and died and bloomed again, like they were teaching me how to stay, how to let things go, how to let them return. Our son laughed in the distance, his little voice threading through the warm air like music that didn't ask permission to be heard. I watched him run through the grass, barefoot, wild, sunlight wrapped in skin and innocence. He had his father's eyes, and mine, a dangerous mix. I sat beneath the pergola, fingertips brushing the edge of the journal I hadn't opened in weeks. The pen lay beside it, untouched. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd write now that there was nothing left to run from. Maybe peace is its own kind of silence, a heavy, terrifying one. He called me Mama today, not for the first time, but for the first time with certainty, with intent. He fell and scraped his knee and didn't cry for help. He just looked up and whispered it like a spell, Mama. And I went to him like the earth to rain. Sometimes I wonder if I've truly forgiven Nico. Then I watch him hold our son. I watch the way he softens only for me, how he looks at us like he still can't believe we stayed. And I know, I didn't just forgive him. I chose him, every day. Because the truth is, I don't want the kind of love that's easy. I don't want a love that fits neatly inside a fairy tale or plays well in daylight. I want the kind that bleeds. The kind that makes you choose it even when you have every reason not to. He never promised me softness, but he gave me everything else. His loyalty, his soul, his name. And now, he gives me silence. Not the cold kind he used to wield like a weapon, but the kind that feels like sanctuary. I looked out at our son again, who had paused by the hedge to watch a butterfly land on his hand. He didn't flinch. He just smiled. And in that moment, I knew we'd done something right. We built something from ashes. We made a kingdom out of ruins, and I'd do it all again. Every scar, every scream, every stolen breath. Because in the end, I didn't just survive the fire. I learned how to hold it.
There are moments when power doesn't roar, it whispers. And in the quiet, I hear the wind against the stone wall, the soft footsteps of the woman I would kill the world for, the laughter of my son as he runs barefoot across the garden I swore would never know blood. But tonight I felt something else, a shift, a presence, the kind of stillness that doesn't belong. I moved through the corridors without sound, the weight of silence curling around me like an old My hand rested against the edge of the door frame, the one leading to the nursery, to the heart of everything I never believed I could have. Arya stood there, back to me, rocking our son in her arms. She didn't see me, or maybe she did, and wanted me to believe otherwise. Either way, I watched her for a long moment, the curve of her shoulder, the way her body softened only when he touched her, and I felt it again, the shift, behind me, in the dark. I turned, slowly. A man I thought long buried stepped from the shadows, his hands empty, his smile cold. "You've gotten comfortable," he said. Domestic. My jaw tensed. I didn't answer. Not yet. He looked past me, toward the half-lit room where my entire world. "You really think you can keep something that beautiful without consequence?" I stepped forward. One breath, one movement. "You made a mistake," I said calmly. "Oh?" He grinned. "And what's that?" "You didn't kill me when you had the chance." The next moment moved like breath. Fast. Final. He reached for something he'd never get to use, and I reminded him who I was. Not with noise, not with mercy, but with precision. By the time he hit the ground, Arya was in the doorway. She didn't flinch. She looked at me, covered in shadows, in silence, in blood that wasn't mine, and she didn't look away. Our son reached for her hair, babbling nonsense and light, and I smiled, because they were still here, still mine, and I would bury the world 1,000 times to keep it that way. I met her eyes. "No one touches what's mine." She didn't argue. She never would, because she knew now. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was a throne built in ash, and I'd kill for it, over and over again. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story touched you, if it made your pulse quicken, your breath catch, or your heart ache in that quiet, unspoken way, then know this. Your presence here is no accident. You were meant to hear this. Every time you leave a like, a comment, or share this tale with someone who needs it, you're helping this world of words reach another soul who might be longing to feel something real. You breathe life into the story just by being here. So stay, speak. Even a simple "I'm here" means more than you know. Subscribe if you haven't. It's free, but what you give in return, your time, your heart, your attention, is priceless. If you can, share this. Whisper it into someone's inbox. Post it where strangers can stumble upon it like fate. Because maybe, just maybe, a single story can quiet the noise, soothe the wound, and remind someone out there what it feels like to burn. Thank you for listening, and may you always, always feel welcome here.